All right, y'all, welcome back and happy Friday. My name is Bull, and this is the Bluechip Breakdown. In today's video, I want to talk about Coach Heupel's offense because I think that it's looked great over the course of like regular season play. We've put up tremendous numbers. We've broken several records, but I don't know if the way that the scheme is set up, that this team can go to the national championship, much less win one. And that's what we want to do on this channel. And some people would make the argument that, well, it doesn't matter what the scheme is. We don't really have the Jimmys and Joes on paper for us to get to that point anyway in 2026 or 2027. Probably going to have a really young quarterback as our starter. We don't have enough of this or enough of that. Man, look, you can always find reasons for us to be unsuccessful, but winners find ways for us to be successful. And what I want to show y'all first and foremost is a tool that we love to use on this channel. This is the 24/7 Sports Team Talent Composite for the Big Ten heading into 2025. And what it does is it ranks these rosters on paper from best to worst. So I'm going to scroll this all the way down to the bottom of the list so that y'all can see Indiana was ranked dead last in this conference. They only had 7 blue chip caliber players, which is tied only with Illinois, who we just got beat by in our bowl game, even though they lost probably some of those blue chip caliber players. But the whole point is people talk about this gauntlet of a schedule that Tennessee is going to have in 2026 and 2027. Well, relatively speaking, for Indiana, this was a gauntlet schedule even in the Big Ten, which, yes, it's more top-heavy than the SEC. But all these teams on paper were more talented than Indiana is. So, yeah, you need the Jimmys and Joes. But what you need more than how they look on paper is how do they fit into your scheme? You need to have a scheme that's not this like gimmick. You know what I'm saying? It needs to be a real scheme that gets better in the later months of a regular season and heading into the playoffs and heading into the championship. You have to be able to grow within that scheme. And if you can do that, all those things, then you have as good a chance as anybody else to go and win a national championship. So I wanted to start it off right there just to kind of like let y'all know that in this video, we're going to be breaking down how can Tennessee continue to close the gap as far as the offensive scheme goes from what we've been doing to what the championship teams have been doing. Because, like I say, man, look, Coach Heupel has already started to make some tweaks to our offense. Obviously, he's made some pretty big moves on defense and for our, strength team, so on and so forth. And what I've heard, y'all, is the vibe on campus it's different from what it has been since Coach Heupel's been here. It's about discipline. It's going to be about physicality when some pads come on. So we love to hear those things. Coach Heupel is a winner. He's going to find ways for us to win. So with all that being said, y'all, please do us a favor. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. It helps us to grow as a channel. It helps to push this video out to more Tennessee fans. And a huge shout out to our members on YouTube and on Patreon. Appreciate y'all so much. So let's jump into it, y'all. First thing that I want to look at here, kind of briefly, y'all can pause it and go through all this stuff. It's a ton of information in this video. We have a lot more that we need to cover, but I did want to just do a recap on the changes that I talked about that Coach Heupel has made since he's been at Tennessee. So basically, he went from this gimmicky offense in 2021 and 2022 to more like pro style in 2025, and we have to continue to add more like pro style elements in 2026 and kind of like finish it up in 2027. Now, number one, I'm happy that Coach Heupel came in 2021, 2022 with this gimmicky offense that spreads you out real wide. It goes real fast. But from an actual scheme perspective, from a mental standpoint on all offensive players, very, very simple, very basic. I'm talking about on like a high school level. There's a lot of high school offenses that were even more difficult than our offense was in those kind of like earlier years. But it was necessary just because, no one had seen this offensive style inside of this conference. We had to get back to relevance. Tennessee was just like wandering around in the wilderness, and we lost a whole bunch of scholarship players that were really good. We lost a bunch of scholarships. We had to do something that was going to be instant to get people, to get kids and so on and so forth to want to come and play for us. So that's why 2021 and 2022 was just huge. And I love that Coach Heupel did it. But I think that he knew from Jump Street that he was going to have to make changes because in 2023 and 2024, defenses started to figure our system out, and the field mostly looked like, hey, everything's covered up. The defense is running all the routes for us. And I know that I've said this 500 million times. I'm not sure if I've done this quite yet, but I want to actually put out all of the dropbacks that we had in our playoff game versus the Buckeyes so that people can see how the field actually looked. Okay, so that people can see that I'm not just making it up. There were some times when people might have popped open, but for the most part, whenever people were starting to pop open, the pressure was getting there. It was times when people might have been open, but they weren't running their routes. But for the most part, the defense was running the routes for us, and you can also get a chance to see the Coach Knows system versus our veer and shoot system. I know that that's kind of like been a topic here recently about, hey, how is Coach Knowles going to help Hype, and how is Hype going to be able to help Coach Knowles? So y'all can see all those things. I will have that out for y'all at some point today. But either way, we definitely had to make some major changes heading into 2025, and we most definitely did. We'll talk about it some more as we get deeper into it. It was still pretty simple, where it's basically, well, from 2021 to 2024, it was still like a, hey, one read sort of a system, one read, or it's like RPO. But, in 2024, we started to slow things down. 2025, we're also slow. Not quite as slow as 24, but biggest difference here is that the quarterback could actually go through some kind of like full field reads, right? So that was huge because we hadn't seen that previously. Also, we just kept on as we've gone through like these different eras of the offense. We've added more to like our running game. We've utilized our personnel differently, so on and so forth. It's just all gotten a lot more pro style. So let's move forward and talk about the first thing that Tennessee needs to change, big change that we need to make to get more like these championship winning teams. So I looked at data from like the past 10 years, right? Obviously focusing on the past 5 for Coach Heupel and his tenure here at Tennessee. But I looked at data over 10 years of championship teams, playoff teams, how teams kind of like get better or worse from the start of the season to the end of the season based on different types of offenses. So Tennessee and Ole Miss, we've been running pretty much the same offense. It is veer and shoot. Both of these programs want to go fast, so on and so forth. But Tennessee's been operating on average since Coach Heupel's been here at snapping the football with over 19 seconds left on the play clock. Now, this is how you can tell what tempo that teams are actually running. It's not so much about the offensive like play count and all that. A lot of different factors and variables can impact that. But either way, Tennessee's been operating at like this hyper tempo. No teams in the past decade have won a national championship operating at that tempo. Next thing that I want to talk about is the up tempo. So for the past couple of seasons, which y'all can see what Tennessee's done in the bottom right corner, just like over the years as far as the tempo and what it ranks, so on and so forth. But for the past 2 years, Tennessee's been operating at the up tempo pace. One team has won a national championship in the past decade operating at this pace, and that's Clemson. And they were snapping the football with 16.6 seconds left on the play clock. So that was still slower than our slowest year under Coach Heupel. So y'all can see how this stuff does correlate. But most national championship teams, y'all, okay, most of them operate in the controlled tempo rate, which is 15 or less seconds left on that play clock. So y'all can see how all that looks in the chart to your right. You can see where Tennessee's at on average versus the national champions for these past 5 years. So yes, the tempo needs to slow down. The main reason for it is we need a lot more pre-snap movement. Championship teams have a ton of pre-snap movement. There's actually a threshold of 50% or more pre-snap movement, which y'all can see in the bottom left-hand chart. Tennessee's been way under that. Now, if you come back up to the top left-hand, kind of like graph thing there, you're going to see Tennessee's like little spots. It's showing our tempo versus our pre-snap movement and where the championship teams are kind of like clustered at, right? Very far away from that. And it's crazy because as we've slowed down on the tempo, the pre-snap movement has actually gone down. So the reason for that, y'all, is even whenever we were doing more like pre-snap movement, it was like built into the play. It wasn't like what those championship teams have been doing, which is, hey, you come up to the line of scrimmage and all of that movement is the quarterback. It's meaningful, right? The quarterback is saying, hey, shift it here or motion it here so that we can get into a better play. That's the difference from what Tennessee's been doing. And we definitely have to add that. And I think that George McIntyre is the perfect quarterback to actually get to do that for the first time under Coach Heupel because he is such a football smart sort of a guy. Now, I think that we've had other quarterbacks that were like football smart. I don't know him personally. I haven't really sat down with him or, really listened to him breaking down ball as much. But just going off of their history, which I know pretty well for all those guys, if you just look at how GMAC was raised in a real true football family, I'm sure that he's going to understand how football works from a common sense standpoint and probably on like a higher level standpoint. So I feel like this is something that the team is already starting to like install. It's important that you have a quarterback that is on campus and going through things that is part of this because it's going to be a huge factor in how well our team does in 2026. Now, that chart to y'all's right, it just breaks down everything and it's got the numbers there for you. It's a little bit bigger so that you can see how Tennessee matched up in each of these individual years versus the national champion. So next thing that we have to do, y'all, is less RPO and less shotgun. So top left, less RPO. Tennessee's been operating on average with Coach Heupel at about 36% RPO. National championship teams are operating at about half that rate. So less RPO and more like play action stuff. So this is the interesting thing. Tennessee actually, as far as like play action goes, Tennessee's typically like a top 4 or 5 sort of a football team across the country. And all these rankings is just based on Power Four. Okay. But we actually run a whole lot of play action. But the reason that it doesn't work as well as these other teams is because we're doing it from the shotgun, where it's just like a quick little put the football in the running back's belly. And the linebackers and safeties, the players on defense, they're not really biting up on that run. So it doesn't have as much of an impact as it would if you're getting under center more. So we need to, I mean, look, I would say yes, run more things under center, because obviously we're not even, we're barely even doing that 1.2%. I think that the highest rated that was in 2022. But yeah, I mean, pistol could also help with this. You just need to be able to put the football into a running back's belly and it actually look like, hey, this is a handoff. You know what I mean? So that the defense bites up on it slightly. But since we've gone to more pistol, we're able to do more of that. And y'all can see that in the chart at the very, very bottom. But if you get under center, that's really best case. Like, we're getting away from the gimmicky stuff and we're getting into a true offense that defenses have to like respect, and they have to honor everything that you're showing them, because you could be balanced, you could be good at anything. And if they kind of like slack off anywhere, then now all of a sudden there's going to be some big holes in their defense. And let me say one last thing about the like run pass option stuff. The main reason that you want to get away from doing this, y'all, is because of the tendencies. RPOs are very, very simple. It's, hey, we're going to hand it off with this running concept in this down and distance, with this sort of a look, or we're going to throw it to this sort of like route concept, so on and so forth. And as you get deeper into a season, those tendencies, it's pretty easy to pick up on it. Also, the talent level of those linebackers and those safeties is going to get better and better, especially once you get to the playoffs. So I'm just pointing it all out that this is what all the information says that national championship offenses do. Tennessee's got to make at least some of these changes or start moving towards all of these changes in the offseason. So just to recap everything that we talked about today, y'all. Number one, we need a lot more true pre-snap movement shifts. Come up to the line of scrimmage and actually change some things. So in 2025, we were at about 22% pre-snap movement. We've got to get to 50. So that number has to more than double. Okay. And it actually has to be, we're moving with a purpose. It's not just, hey, coach called it and he said, hey, we're going to shift, or, motion, whatever. It's got to actually be something that will impact what the defense is doing. All right. Number two, obviously, for us to be able to do that, we have to slow our tempo down by about 5 seconds, if not more. Now, there is a little bit of a sweet spot. You don't want to go super, super slow. That's not necessary. But you do need to be able to like operate, I guess, like as quickly as possible, while also still being able to change the play on average, about like 1.5 times. Like sometimes you got to be able to change it twice. Sometimes you just need to be able to change it like once. So third thing, y'all, cut the RPO number in half as well and increase the true play action. So doesn't so much correlate to us necessarily, because we're already running so much play action, but run more play action under center, which is the next thing right there at number 4. Need to try to get under center, at least some. Now, number 5, y'all, you don't really have to do this per se. It might be sort of beneficial. It's saying, hey, look, have a totally different offense from the regular season to the postseason. Now, I have some problems with that. Reason for it is you need to practice on everything over the course of the year. I'm not huge on hiding stuff. I think that once you get to more pro style, you probably want to put everything out there, because now you're making the defense have to stay honest, because, man, we had the game plan for all this stuff. But like, you hide stuff whenever you're running gimmicks, because you don't want people to figure it out, because once it's figured out, there are no counters. Once you get to the pro style stuff, you have counters. So I don't think that you necessarily have to do that. It's only if you're just going to be running all this veer and shoot stuff that, that would be one of the options that we definitely probably need to do. But something else that I saw over the course of my like research is that championship teams run, I think it's 6 to 7%, 6 offensive lineman sets. Tennessee's at like less than 1%. So yeah, running bigger personnels, it's cool with the tight ends. But once you go to like a jumbo, it's actually better to run that with the offensive linemen. Tennessee's been using defensive linemen, in our like jumbo packages. And I don't really like love that, y'all, just because those guys, man, they're going to go hard. They're typically going to be better athletes than the offensive linemen, but they're also not going to be great blockers. We have enough depth on the offensive line now that we can run more of these 6 and maybe, like whatever, like 6+ offensive line sets. and really like impose our will on these defenses. So that is something that I think that we definitely need to add. And hey, you could run some tackle eligibles out of that. So like a pass play to somebody like David Sanders. We've seen him catch some touchdown passes when he was in high school. But that's pretty much it. The last thing that I want to touch on, y'all, is the main reason that I feel like George McIntyre could potentially end up being a better option than guys like Brendan Sorsby or Sam Levitt is because whenever I'm watching those guys in their films at different institutions, they weren't really having to go through reads. They weren't really changing plays at the line of scrimmage. I think that George McIntyre can do that on a higher level than those guys can. Now, yes, they are older, maybe bigger, stronger. They've played more football, so they probably could have picked it up. That's why I said, look, for guys like Brendan Sorsby, I could see him potentially being better than George McIntyre. I said that, look, Todd Simpson and, Darian Mensah, those two guys, in their system, they actually were changing plays and, going through reads, things like that. So there would be probably for sure upgrades if we could have went out and got those guys. But you have to look at the whole thing because now that we're going to be, I think, leaning more on pro style elements, you need a quarterback that can operate that. I just don't look. I love Joey Aguilar. I just don't know if he would be the best option for it. Can he pick it up? Possibly, but is he going to be able to go through, like spring practice and all that type of stuff? I don't know. Is he going to be able to sit in on these meetings and all that type of stuff? I don't know. I'm sure that they could get on Zoom calls. Is that legal? If it's not, we're probably not doing it. So I'm just saying it's little things like that. Like you want for whoever the starting quarterback is with all these big kind of like major changes coming in 2026 to have spent ample time with this team and learning all this stuff so that we don't have to like restart the whole learning process. But those are just my thoughts. Please share y'all's down in the comments section. And as always, please make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. And we'll probably be talking to y'all tomorrow. Thanks. Peace. Thanks for watching. And please make sure to like and subscribe to the channel because that keeps us growing inside of the YouTube algorithm. And if you did like this video, here's another one that you might also enjoy. Thank you. We'll see you on the next one. Peace.